My name's Belinda. I work for Sporting Heritage CIC, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Joanie Evans to the Sporting Ambassador team at Sporting Heritage. Our sporting ambassadors come from across the world of sport and culture to help us share our vision and promote the importance and relevance of sporting heritage collections. Joanie's had an amazing career in sport as a player for Hackney Women Football Club and as competitor in the Gay Games from 1994. And in 2013, she became the co-president of the Federation of Gay Games and is an active member of the LGBT plus sporting community. So hello, Joanie, and thank you very much for joining me.
Morning, thank you. My pleasure.
It's brilliant to speak to you and find out a little bit more about your amazing sporting career and your own sporting heritage and background. So to start off, could you, I've given you a little introduction to who you are, but maybe you could tell us a little bit more about your own sporting story and how you became involved in sport.
Yeah, well, just at the point of me coming out, I sort of like looked at what I enjoyed most, and sport was one of the things that gave me the most joy at that time. So I started doing a recreation and leisure course at college, and through that I found out that there was women's football, which I would have loved to have done when I was younger but didn't have the opportunity. So fortunately I found a team in Hackney which consequently became the first out team in Europe, and from there my love of wanting to be around to encourage anybody to play sport regardless of what age they are sort of stemmed from that. And obviously when Hackney, I was involved in a short film about homophobia in sport, which led Hackney to knowing about the Gay Games. And at that point they were on the third games in Vancouver, and then the next one was going to be in New York in '94. So that's when the team planned to go. And since then, I got hooked on the Gay Games, wanted to know more, and became involved on different levels. Sort of just started off being on a committees, like the sports committee, to learn more. Because at that time, there wasn't a lot of things going on around LGBT plus sport in the UK. Because when Hackney went to the Gay Games, we thought we were the only ones from the UK going. And it wasn't until the opening ceremony, there was like another women's football team there, there was a men's football team there, and there were swimmers and everybody. So, you know, it was quite an exciting time. So that's how it sort of started off. And it was for the 2018 Gay Games, London put in a bid, and I was part of that bid. But when we were unsuccessful, I was approached by a few of the board members of the federation to ask if I would apply for the female co-presidency. And I was a bit shocked because I'm sort of like a background person. I sort of will try and encourage and be around just everywhere, and didn't think anybody had taken any notice of what I'd been doing. And I sort of said, well, yes, I'd do it. I mean, I did joke a bit about whether or not they were only asking me because I was black, because in terms of the diversity of the federation, it was very white North American males. And in terms of that, it was quite a challenge. And at first I was really frightened about doing it. So the first 3 months I was really quiet. And, you know, in some ways people thought, was I the person up? Job. But once I really clicked in, because all of the values and the beliefs and the stuff that I'd wanted to do around, you know, trying to keep sporting heritage alive, trying to make sure that the message goes out about what sports is available to everybody, it gave me the ideal platform for the voice that I've been talking about for the last 20 odd years. So in terms of that, I feel like I'm where I need to be right now to do what I need to do. So that's, I suppose, that's probably the shortest version of my sporting life so far. Yeah, so there's lots of other
Brilliant.
things.
Thanks, Joanie. I mean, you've touched on it there, and I was going to talk about it a little bit later, but I think maybe it's a good time to bring it up now. You said about the makeup of the people that brought the Gay Games together being predominantly white and male. So this year's theme for National Sport and Heritage Day is diversity in sport, and how important do you think it is that there's proper representation across the board in sports and sporting heritage? Organisations like ourselves recognise that we are not diverse enough, that our representation of people from various backgrounds isn't ideal. So, what can we do, and why is it important that organisations like Sport and Heritage really do reflect the full diversity of sport?
I mean, one of the things I said when I first joined the board was that we need to reflect the membership that we serve. And even the membership we serve is also questionable, because the federation it started as a very much American-based organisation, and now we're sort of worldwide. We've got a board that covers every continent. We've got a board member from every continent at the moment, but that's really difficult to maintain. And we've recently just done EDI training with our board as well, because I think it's really important that no matter who the makeup of a board is that they have to be aware of what the differences are and what they need to do to make sure there is full representation. That in itself is really difficult, because finding people from diverse backgrounds who feel confident enough to put themselves up is another thing as well. And it's also what we're finding in our organisation is trying to find more women to be involved at board level, because that's the most, for me, the most important representation, because you get so much. So at the moment, on our board at the moment, it's trying to get women in some of the male-dominated roles, but also, making sure that, the board recognises that there's other qualities that need to happen, because we also look at, if we're getting if somebody can speak more than one language, it's sort of little things that you have to keep looking at. And I think that there needs to be diversity out there, because if people don't see themselves, which is what everybody says, if you don't see yourselves, how can you know where you get to? But that's it, it's also knowing it's a struggle to do that. But I'd rather that I'm there and there'll be an easier journey for somebody else, similar to me, because I sort of felt that I'm the only one who has the passion that I have, who likes to do what I like to do. Most of my friends, they're very, very supportive about what I do, but a lot of them don't do sports. So in terms of that, and when I do meet young Black women out there that are doing sport, I'm really in awe of what they're doing, because they're there and they're coming in at the right time when all of the right things are coming into place. So it's really good to see that organisations are recognising where they're lacking in areas and looking to make sure to address that for the future, because I think that's the most important thing.
And you touched on it there as well about inspiring that next generation. So I think one of the most important things about sport and heritage is that you can look back at the history of a sport and think, oh no, actually I might not be the first person to do this. There are generations of inspiring women and inspiring people that have been fighting to break down those barriers and overcome those struggles before, and that's an inspiration, particularly in something like women's football, to keep driving and keep pushing. So what does sporting heritage mean to you, and how do you think that can be used to inspire a new generation of sports people?
I think the heritage it's really good, because I went to see my Hackney play in a cup final the other week, and it was probably the first cup final since I was in a cup final for the club. So it was quite ironic, because I went with my T-shirt. I had a sweatshirt with one of our old designs on, and one of the younger players came up and she went, "Oh, you're Joanie." And, and she looked at my sweatshirt and she said, "Oh my God, I wasn't even born then." So in terms of that, that was two spectrums of our club. There was I as a, veteran, and now they see me as a patron, versus somebody who's just coming into the team. And when I hear about the younger members and what they say about the history, because they very much, it's a lot for them, they take on the pride of the club from the history. And they know that there is a legacy there that they have to maintain. So that's why I think sporting heritage is really important, because for those who may not know anything about a sports history, there's something there that they can find. And I think you can't lose history. It's like, for me, as like, I'm a bit of a hoarder. So I've got just so much stuff from Hackney. And every time I look through it, it sort of brings up other memories of stuff that at my age now, I'm sort of starting to forget things. So it's nice to have things around that are tactile, that you look at, that you can hear about. And I think that even in terms of the LGBTQ plus community, there's not a lot of history about us, and especially sporting side, and especially in the UK, we don't collect our history here. There's not a lot said about, sports in this country, and I think that needs to be highlighted more, and sort of being, sporting heritage where people get that information. They don't have to keep floundering all over the place for what they need to get. It's like, you know, that there's a place where they could go and get the stuff that they need. And if they don't, I would imagine that if somebody came to sporting heritage about a sport that you did nothing about, it would encourage some sort of investigation about that and some highlight about that. So I think that it's really important that we have a way of remembering or keeping safe our history. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to make sure that stuff doesn't get lost. I think that all that rich material is kept and saved, and that people know how to look after it. And there's loads of organisations that are trying to do that, are trying to save all that important information and all that archive material, and then it can be there for the next generation to learn from and be inspired by. So I think I've at one point I did see some of your material from Hackney Women, and it is just absolutely amazing stuff. Yeah. It is so evocative of the time as well, when Hackney Women started, and we're progressing and breaking down all those barriers. So yeah, it's an amazing collection. Yeah. It'd be really interesting to find out what you think. What's your most important sporting heritage moment? I mean, it could be maybe in your own career, or maybe something else that inspired you from the past.
I didn't have much inspiration. I just think there was just stuff that I like to do, and then I'd hope that I can find somewhere to do it. I think that it's sort of like, if there's any point that, for me, it's like I got a gold in the that's my sort of like thing, that I think that was something I never thought that I would achieve, that would have been achievable in my lifetime, to win a gold medal at a type of Olympics, sort of being the best in your community at something in the world, So I played in the games in Sydney, and with a team called Aztecs, and we're a team made up of women from Italy, New Zealand, and London. And we sort of only met up a week before the games, and played together, just training, and then we played in the games, and we won every game. It was like one of those we could have made a movie out of it. We won every game and everything else, and come away with a gold medal, which I thought that I would never have got. And it's that sort of feeling that not just the gay games, but anything, that if you want to achieve something in your life, then it is really just to try it and just to see how it goes. And if it doesn't, then at least you've had an experience. Because obviously Sydney wasn't my first games. I've been to games and lost terribly with other teams and stuff like that. So it was never going to be it was one of those things that you put on your bucket list of, well, I'll try and do that, or and it's like, for me, it's also being co-president was on that list as well, but one of those not achievable things. But I think that every time I do something different or link in with another thing, I sort of think that that's an achievement. I would never have thought I'd been asked to be an ambassador for sporting heritage. you know, and I sort of tell people, and it's like, oh, I'm an ambassador for Sporting Heritage, and it's like that in itself is an achievement. And I think every time I do something different, and knowing that it's going to make a difference is what keeps me going.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I had a question that I was going to ask about right at the beginning of our conversation. You mentioned going to the gay games and not realising that there were going to be other football teams there, or other teams from other parts of the UK, I think you said. Yeah. And so how important is it that there are these events for LGBTQ plus people to go to, where they can make those connections and there is that community feel about it? Do you think that is still relevant today, as relevant as it was in the 90s?
Yeah, because I think the thing is, it's about access. And I think that if, as a community, you don't have access to something as big as that, for me, as the older I get, is that I still will have an opportunity to compete at the gay games, no matter what age I am, and I can choose whatever sport or cultural event that I want to do. And it's just about being able to be part of something. We're at the point where we're sort of like looking at how can we attract the youth when our upper age is 18. But the world has changed since the gay games started in the 80s. So it's not only trying to attract young people who it may give them the incentive to not stop sport at a certain age and continue, or there's those people who have stopped playing sport because they think they can't, and it still gives them that opportunity. So I think that there will always be a relevance. It's how we approach that relevance. There may be some sports that may be lost because they're not, things may not be. I'm not even sure, because you get new sports all the time. At the moment, we've got fencing that also includes laser, the Star Wars lasers. We've got esports coming in as well. But then we'll have stuff like dodgeball and pickleball, which will cater to an older, just lots of things. So I think that as long as agencies can adapt, then in terms of that, there'll still be relevance. So I can't see the gay games never not happening. It's like how we would evolve. If we're going to be going to different countries, also how do we incorporate those cultures into a really westernized type event, and it's stuff like that. It's about, being able to adapt.
Yeah, I think that the point about it being all sports is really important, because, obviously quite often there's quite a lot of focus on sort of the sports that we play in this country, so football and cricket and rugby and things like that. But Sporting Heritage is about all sport, and National Sporting Heritage Day is about all sport. So a tournament that celebrates all of that and brings all of that together it's quite amazing, really. To be honest, I had no idea about the Star Wars thing either, so that's
but quite cool. That's only just come up recently. So we just had to have a new rule book written on it. So it's like, we didn't even know, but I think it's supposed to be popular in China. So
right, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So the final question really is about National Sporting Heritage Day itself, which is on the 30th of September. So that's the day in the year that we pull out to really celebrate all these types of sporting heritage story. How can people do something on that day that gives a focus to sporting heritage? Is there any way that you think people can get involved?
I mean, it might be good for teams to, people to focus, maybe highlight anyone within their team that's diverse. A lot of, I'm part of I'm a Leeds United supporter, so I'm part of their fan group, and they do loads of stuff. So like people can have a Zoom, get together and talk on that day. I'm not sure what I'll be doing on the day, because there'll probably be something that will be involved. I'll be involved in around that time anyway. But I think it's, you know, any way that people can highlight, even just a poster or a tweet, stuff like that, just to highlight it would be good. I'm not a very good at advertising person, but yeah, there's probably loads that people can do, but, you know, get the message out.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, I think that's everything. All the questions, unless there's anything that in particular that you think we've not covered that you'd like to mention, even about the gay games or anything that you're involved in. But otherwise, I think we've pretty much covered it.
No, we're just for about the gay games. It's just so that people know that we're a voluntary run organisation, so we've got no paid staff. So, and you know, I don't live in San Francisco, I'm afraid. But if people want to get involved, we're always looking for volunteers, people with expertise to help us with the work that we do, which all voluntary organisations need. So I think if people are involved in a sport or they've got any interest in a sport, you don't have to be playing it. You know, a lot of sporting organisations need help in the background, and I think that's where, you know, where it's most needed. So play the sport and you're not doing it anymore, then I'd say get involved on their boards and help them continue their heritage.
Oh, is it the 40th anniversary this year of the...
It is this year
games?
Because it would have been on the 28th of August this year it would be, but because it would be like 40th, yeah. But because of the postponement, we're sort of like spanning it over 2 years. So,
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So there will be some celebrations around this year and maybe next to celebrate that.
We've got like an anniversary pin on sale, and we're doing bits and pieces. It's been very difficult with the pandemic and trying to do everything within that. We've now got a co-hosted event, so trying to sort of make sure that we do some sort of celebration. We were going to have some gala dinner, but where do you have it in the world and stuff like that? So yeah, I was fortunate being in San Francisco and actually being able to be at Kazar Stadium where they had the opening ceremony. So I was there. I've been there this now, which I didn't think I'd be able to do. So I've been to the first where they've had the opening, and they've got now in San Francisco, they've got a Tom Waddell Street, and they've got like a rainbow walk where they've got pictures in the ground, like gold pictures of all famous LGBT, and Tom Waddell's is there as well. So that was quite really historical to see, and knowing that we're still following the same ethos as him. So there's a whole load of heritage there that's a lot of people are still finding out. So yeah.
That sounds brilliant. Yeah. It's really exciting. 40 years, that's some achievement, isn't it, really?
It is. Yeah. I mean, I feel I've got the weight of it all on my shoulders at the moment, because it's like we have to maintain the sort of like the whole participation, inclusion and personal best for people. So, I mean, my other thing about it is that Tom Waddell passed away on my 25th birthday, which was when I chose to come out. So I sort of tell people I'm his reincarnation. So in terms of that, it makes it more of a thing that I'm doing what I'm doing where I am. So yeah, it's a real amazing experience in that I would have never known, sort of living in a council flat in North London, that I'd be co-president of an international organisation that's running 2 co-hosted events this year and preparing for another event in 2026 in Valencia. You know, so anything's possible. So it's out there.
Yeah, that is an amazing story. Yeah, it's an amazing achievement. For me, massively inspirational. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Thank you for giving us your time, and it's been amazing to chat to you about your own personal story and the history of the gay games. absolutely fascinating. I just can't wait to talk about it more on National Sporting Heritage Day as well. I think, given it's the anniversary as well, it'd be brilliant to get that story out there so people can really know the history of the Gay Games.